Everyone, thank you for joining us this afternoon for our tips and tricks preparing your group and fundraising webinar. My name is Justin and I serve on staff with the Gathering. With me this afternoon, we have Vanessa Young, who serves as the team leader for Synod coordinators, and she'll kind of explain what that is and what the team is up to right now. A few things before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to go to the Q&A feature at the bottom of Zoom and put in a question, and we'll get to those at the very end. And then one last thing is we wanted to give a special thanks to the ELCA Foundation for sponsoring this Zoom series. The Foundation's ministry is to help congregations and individuals make an impact in the world. One of the ministries of the Foundation is providing socially responsible investing for ELCA congregations and ministries which follow the guidelines and priorities of the ELCA. If you or your ministry would like to learn more, visit elcafoundation.org for more information or how to contact your regional gift planner. And with that, I will pass it over to Vanessa.
Thanks, Justin. I'm going to share my screen and we will begin. Welcome, everyone. We're glad that you're here. Thanks for taking some time to join us to think about getting ready for the Gathering, more preparation to get ready for this great event taking place next July. A lot of the content that we cover tonight will be kind of gathering best practices. And so we're looking forward to sharing this with you and of course, taking your questions at the end. You'll notice that this webinar's title, I'm gonna get myself set up here, is connected to the handbook title. So straight up spoiler alert, I don't want to ruin this webinar for anyone, but the handbook is absolutely kind of the skeleton of the content that we're going to cover tonight, because it's really the best resource that we have to help people be prepared for the Gathering. So we're going to be referencing it throughout this webinar tonight. If you have a copy handy, that'd be awesome, but certainly we'll reference like page numbers so that if you want to go back after this webinar, you'll be able to kind of connect those dots and get even more info than is covered in our slides tonight. So we'll be referencing it, going throughout, and we are going to dive right in. Actually, before we cover this first slide, I should maybe introduce myself to say that I'm Vanessa Young. I'm the team leader for Gathering Synod coordinators. Synod coordinators team is comprised of 7 leadership team members that are volunteers, as well as 65 Synod coordinators, one from each of the ELCA 65 synods. Everybody's a volunteer. And so GSCs for short, we call them. I might say that a few times. So that's what I mean by it. GSCs, Gathering Synod coordinators. That basically our team's role is to equip this group of 65 Synod coordinators to share information, to give them knowledge about the 2022 Gathering, to help you be prepared for this event. So it's creating information, curating resources, answering questions so that they can be prepared to help you be prepared for next summer's event. A prepared adult leader makes all the difference in the world for a young person to have a positive experience at the Gathering. And so we try to do our best to help those Synod coordinators have the information to be able to help you, or if they don't have an exact answer to your exact question, they might know where to look or to give you some information about how to brainstorm an idea and answer of when maybe you will be able to find out the exact answer to that exact question. So they're meant to be a support for you, a source of support, a local person from your synod to be able to walk alongside you as you get ready for the Gathering. I will add that this is my 3rd cycle serving on Gathering leadership. That I have worked in youth ministry for the past 20 years and have brought young people to the past 3 gatherings. And so having worked with middle schoolers and high schoolers over those years, I will tell you that a lot of the information that I've shared tonight, the information that's shared in the handbook, information that gets shared with Synod coordinators comes from that 20 years of information that people have shared with me and things that I've learned along the way. So we certainly hope this will be helpful to you, all of this kind of gathered wisdom from a group of hundreds of people from over the years who have tried to share their best practices, all boiled down into this amazing handbook. We'll try to hit some highlights for you tonight. Again, we could probably do like a 5-part series, but we're going to keep it to one tonight to hit the highlights for you. So let's jump in. Getting started, What is the ELCA Youth Gathering? So if you're here for this webinar, you probably already know the answer to that question. We hope you might already know the answer. But if you're sharing with young people, inviting and encouraging them to participate in the gathering, or talking to parents and guardians about this event, there's a chance that they might not know what the ELCA Youth Gathering is. So some of the best places to find a description, right, if you want some resources to help you describe what the gathering is, are listed here that we'll go through briefly. The website is one of the most thorough and current places to get all information about the gathering. It's updated on a regular basis. All the details and things that are sometimes posted in other places, it all kind of lives on the gathering website. So be sure to be well versed. You can always find great information there. There's an about page that you can get to from the main gathering website page. And then there's a section that's called overview. So there's a really succinct, great summary of what is the ELCA Youth Gathering that you can reference there and share with people. I'll also mention that there's a great video on YouTube that is titled, "What is the ELCA Youth Gathering?" I want to say that it's less than 5 minutes long. You can find that and share that. So sometimes it's helpful to just have like a great visual to share with people, and it covers some of that same content in a visual way. So a couple of great places that get at that exact question. Of course, the Gathering Handbook has a ton of details. It depends on who you're sharing with in that context, whether or not the handbook is the right fit for the person who's asking you this question. But of course, the handbook is going to cover what is the gathering, what does it mean, what are some of the aspects that comprise this event. Something that I've done in the past in sharing what the gathering is with young people, parents and guardians, is to ask youth who went to the gathering in the past. Or maybe they're getting ready to go again for a second time, to have them come and share their personal experience about what it was like the first time they went, or why they enjoyed it, what their favorite part was, to kind of share that personal testimony with these younger youth as they think about whether or not they want to go, right? Like nothing beats a personal testimony. So if there are young people in your community who can come and share in that way, that'd be awesome. If you don't have anyone who's a part of your community, or maybe they're away and not able to join in a Zoom or a youth group activity to come and share in this way, maybe connect with your Synod coordinator to see if there is another local young person who'd be willing to come and share about why they enjoyed the gathering in the past and why they would encourage and recommend other young people go to this next gathering. I want to mention a bunch of resources, of course, that we're going to cover tonight. And so we've talked about a few as you share with people what is the gathering. And I'll point out here again that it depends on the context and who's looking for the information. We don't want people to feel like they're drinking from a fire hose. So some of these are kind of like for the first impressions, first sharing what is the gathering, and some of these others are for somebody who wants a deep dive, right, to really get into it. So on this list, I'll mention GNews is a great resource, maybe not for every single person, but certainly for adult leaders who are going to go with a gathering group. Maybe you're really invested, like parent or guardian who wants to know everything and anything, but you can subscribe to GNews to get connected and to have that information come to you, as opposed to having to go to it on the website or go to the handbook on the website or going to social media. So GNews, subscribe. You can get to it from the main page. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find a way to subscribe to the GNews, and it'll come to your email inbox once a month. Also mentioned here is Gathering social media. I would say that probably Facebook has the most activity out of all the social media platforms that the gathering is on. And you don't necessarily have to follow all of them, right? So you can kind of take your pick. If you're on Instagram or if you're on Twitter, take your pick, among others. But all of them, a lot of times information is cross-posted. And so take your pick, choose one of those, follow along, and you'll get great updates across social media as well. Along with kind of getting started as an adult leader and trying to think about what is this event, how am I going to share it, where can I find information? The handbook often references research, plan, prepare, pray. Because these are some of the helpful steps to kind of pace yourself, to gather the information, to make a plan based on your context, to prepare the best as you can, and of course, to pray. I think a lot of times as youth workers, sometimes we get into the weeds of logistics and we jump into that level of detail, but we can't forget to pray, right? Like God is at the center of this event. We want to make sure that in all of our planning and preparing and information sharing and gathering of young people, that we're reminded that God made this event possible for young people to be able to participate. And we want to make sure that God continues to be at the center as we prepare for this faith formation event for young people next summer. I've mentioned the handbook a few different times and will continue to mention it. I've got my handy copy here with me. You can get a bound copy like this from Old Lutheran, I think for $10. And so you can have a copy like this, so you can dog ear your pages and make notes in it and things like that. Or you can get one for free on the resources page of the Gathering website. And it's a PDF, so you can just kind of grab it and take a look there. So we've got a couple images on some of these slides that come from this handbook resource. There's some really helpful tips about creating a plan in the handbook. And so it depends on how much time you've got, where you're starting. If you were starting a year and a half out or a year out, or if you're going to start 6 months out, but this it has lots of great advice about getting started wherever you're at. And so check out pages 75 to 81 in the PDF version of the handbook for some great tips about getting started exactly where you are. Connecting with your synod coordinator. I told you I was going to mention this a few times, right? Because this is the team that I'm a part of. So if you're on the main page of the Gathering website, you scroll down to the bottom. On that right side, you'll see that feature of find your synod coordinator. Maybe you've already found your synod coordinator and that's awesome. Well done. If you haven't, do send them a message so that you can introduce yourself, get connected. It's a really good idea to connect with your synod coordinator because they will be able to support and again, walk alongside you as you prepare for the gathering. They've got a ton of knowledge and resources. They can brainstorm with you. They can connect you to other congregations in your synod that are also planning to go to the gathering. If you've got questions or concerns, they can help you find some answers. And so if you haven't already, be sure that you're connecting with your synod coordinator because they will be a great resource for you, not just that introductory stage, but all throughout, all the way up until the gathering, excuse me, but also hopefully kind of creating a sense of community there in your synod beyond the gathering. So hopefully this is a familiar person to you, someone who's involved in youth ministry in your synod, and somebody that will be a great resource for you alongside other adult leaders for the next several months. Catch up on my notes here so I make sure I don't forget anything. Your synod coordinator might also be planning activities for folks who are getting ready for the gathering, as far as like adult leader trainings, sharing resources, sharing reminders so that you can be connected to the things that are going on, things to be reminded of this week or something important that's coming up next week. There might be a deadline or an application for something, and they can draw your attention to those things if you're kind of engaged in the network that they've created. So it might be that they're sending out emails on some sort of regular basis. It could be that they've got a Facebook group where they're sharing resources. Maybe it's through your synod's Facebook group. So whatever you do, if you haven't already, please make sure you connect with your synod coordinator and they'll get you connected to whatever those resources, those communities and networks are so that you can be sure to collect all that great information that they're sharing, probably already, right? Hopefully they've been sharing it for months now. So never too late to meet your synod coordinator. Please be sure to do that. I will also mention, I'm going to click to the next slide here, that another great resource, of course, is connecting with your fellow youth workers there in your synod. So your synod coordinator can help with that. Again, connecting with other congregations that are headed to the gathering. And maybe you've already done that. You've kind of already met people. You've got a neighbor congregation that you're in touch with already, but maybe it's someone that you haven't had the chance to meet before. So again, not only in preparing for the gathering, but also generally getting to know people there in your synod that could turn out to be an amazing resource for you. So please take advantage of those opportunities to get to know each other, to consider partnering with those neighbor congregations. You might decide that you want to do some activities to think about the gathering, to get ready to explore the theme together, to learn about Minneapolis together, or plan to do some meals together when you get to the gathering, or maybe afterward, right? Because you've bonded, you want to hang out and do some activities to kind of share back with your community about this experience that you've had after the event. So lots of great opportunities made possible by connecting with your synod coordinator and connecting with your peers in your respective synod. So check out some ideas about partnering with folks locally. on pages 17 and 18 in the handbook, in the PDF version. All right, another super important part of getting ready for the gathering that we honestly can't stress enough is the importance of identifying adult leaders. We call them adult leaders, not chaperones, because there's absolutely a difference. An adult leader, hopefully someone who is caring and engaged, committed, and adaptable, that they are there to participate in the event right alongside the young people who are having this experience, as opposed to a chaperone who maybe is just kind of hanging out on the sidelines, making sure nobody wanders off or gets hurt. Also important, but we're looking for a little more than that. So we call them adult leaders, not chaperones. We invite and encourage you to do the same because we're hoping that these adult leaders will be invested in these young people before the event, during, of course, but also after. Hopefully these are people who are invested in youth ministry in your congregation, in your community year round, not just for 5 days at an event. So the youth gathering is an important event for those adult leaders, of course, right? They have amazing experiences at the event too. But it's important to remember when you're thinking about who the right adult leaders are to accompany these young people in this experience, that the gathering is a faith formation event for youth. It's a youth gathering, not an adult gathering. And so I don't want to belabor this point too much, but I know there are a ton of adults out there who love this event and will do just about anything to get themselves there because they've enjoyed it so much. Sometimes it's because they personally, have grown from it and really enjoy it and want to be a part of this amazing gathering of Lutherans that happens every 3 years. But also sometimes it's because maybe they didn't get to go as a young person themselves, or they never experienced anything quite like this. It is the biggest gathering of our denomination, and it's an exciting experience. But to just be mindful that the adults who go with your young people are people who are there for those young people, not for themselves, right? They might have an amazing, powerful experience too, but the young people should be at the forefront. And so making sure that the adult leaders that you identify have that in mind. This is a youth event. Those adult leaders that you might be recruiting, seeking out, looking for, asking your young people who they think should come, should absolutely be involved in looking at the resources in the lead up to this event. You should set expectations and have them participate in trainings to be prepared, to have a realistic understanding of what this event is going to be like, what it means to be an adult leader, not a chaperone, what it's going to take, what it means to be caring and engaged and committed and adaptable, right? That sometimes people have rose-colored glasses and you're excited to go on this amazing experience. You need to think about what it's actually going to mean, what it's going to feel like, what it's going to take day in and day out for these young people to have a positive experience. And so preparing mindset is a huge part of training these adult leaders so they're ready for the actual experience. There are loads of great pieces of perspective and ideas about how to recruit the right adult leaders and to prepare them for this event in the handbook on pages 11 to 17. It's a sizable chunk of the handbook because it's so important. Not having the right adult leaders really could be a game changer for your young people and the gathering experience that they have. And so spending some really intentional time thinking about who you recruit to go in this way, it just makes a huge difference to the young people and the experience that they have. So please be mindful, check out those great resources and plan accordingly. All right, we are going to move on to getting your group together. So creating a plan is the first thing that we have here. And again, we all know during the past year and a half, you create a plan and sometimes the plan changes, right? We know. But to do your best to kind of put together an idea of what you think is best guess going to work out for you and your group, knowing that there might be some changes along the way. Doing some preliminary work on a budget can be one helpful place to start, of course, to think about the cost of registration, kind of a guesstimate on the number of young people that you might have interested in going, thinking about the cost of transportation and kind of some of the practical parts of finding that transportation, getting to where you're going, or from where you're starting up to Minneapolis. Cost of housing. The gathering has some estimates on how much hotel rooms will cost, and just kind of thinking about that, as well as meals for the amount of time for traveling to Minneapolis, and then while you're there, and then on the way home. So trying to lay some of that out ahead of time is a really good idea, just so you have a sense of what it will take financially to make this happen. I think it's also a great idea, of course, to assess interest, because you need to know who wants to go. Hopefully you've mentioned it, or you've shared what is the youth gathering in some general ways already, but make some intentional asks. Put out an invitation to all of the eligible young people from your congregation, from your community, right? Maybe they're not members of your church. They could be a friend of a kid who goes to your church, right? Someone who's come along before who might be interested in participating in this event. So to invite all of them to come and check out some information about what this would mean to participate in the gathering in some really practical terms. So you've got your tentative plan to be able to share with them, done that work ahead of time, and then you can kind of sit down and have a conversation and talk about what it would mean. You never know who's going to be interested. So it's a really good idea to kind of cast a wide net, right? Plant those seeds, scatter them everywhere, so that you might, have all kinds of young people who didn't expect decide that this is something that interests them, they want to participate in. When you do gather them together and you're assessing that interest, be sure to share a timeline for what you have in mind for kind of gathering that interest, deciding if people are committing to go, if they want to be a part of this process to go forward from here, so that you can have a sense of who's going to sign up, gathering their information, and then when you're going to meet and be together in the months that follow leading up to July 2022. And so I know, again, from my experience, that I would tend to kind of, maybe it sounds old-fashioned. I'm a little old-fashioned. I would write a letter, right? Which maybe is extremely old-fashioned. But I would write a letter laying all of it out, and I would send it to every household of a young person who was eligible to go to the gathering. Because a lot of times people get buried in emails, right? Emails are good. I'm not saying to not email. You're probably going to have to email at some point. But I would send it so that they would have this piece of mail, not as much mail coming to people's houses anymore, perhaps. They could look at the letter, have a sense of where we're going. We're going to meet on this day. We're going to talk about it. Here are the details that we need to know. And here's kind of the commitment of getting ready, what it's going to take to meet along the way for the next several months. And so kind of laying it all out, and of course, sharing reminders of those pieces of the letter as time went on. That's what worked for me. I know other people have like a really active presence in a Facebook group. And so that makes the most sense to kind of share the reminders along the way in that medium. Or maybe you text people on a regular basis, or maybe it's a postcard, whatever works for you in your context, just to kind of share the plan of where you're going, what you think is going to be the best bet to gather your group in this way. A few other things about gathering your group, getting your group together. Getting ready materials are there for you. They've been out since summertime, right? It's been a few months that they've been out already. So be sure to check those out. The gathering has absolutely erred on the side of having more resources for you in those getting ready materials as opposed to not enough. So it's not to suggest that you have to cover all of that ground during the next several months leading up to the gathering, but there's a ton of things for you to kind of take a look at and find out what works best for your group. So check out all of it as the primary adult leader, take a look, see what's there, and pick out the parts that make the most sense for your group. Ton of great resources to think about the gathering theme and our host city and what it will mean to participate and kind of learn and grow in faith during this experience. So be sure to check out getting ready materials and to incorporate that in the times that you meet between now and the gathering itself. We'll also mention that group covenants are a really good idea to be able to sit down with your group, the young people who decide that they are interested in going, as well as the adult leaders who commit to going, to have a conversation about what it means to be together for this kind of experience, how you're going to treat one another and relate to each other during this experience, to hopefully have an understanding about what it means to be in close quarters and to share these experiences, to be personal with one another, maybe in ways that you haven't been before, certainly in ways that maybe some of us haven't been in the past year and a half. And we all need some brush up on how to relate, how to be in social situations, how to share close quarters. And so creating a covenant is a really good idea to kind of have some of those conversations up front to avoid miscommunications, misunderstandings later in your gathering experience. The Gathering Handbook has some really great examples of covenants. So be sure to check those out. You literally could use them as a template, or you kind of get a sense of things and then ask the group to come up with their own. That's a really great idea to ask the young people in your group what they think is important, what sorts of things they think you should lay out ahead of time. And it might surprise you, some of the things that are important to them that they want to make sure are kind of like ground rules for the group. And traveling together, being together, and having this experience together for next summer. So check out pages 27 to 30 for some helpful tips there on covenants and getting ready as a group. Fundraising. Again, we could probably do like a multi-part series on this because it's a part of the gathering experience, right? To get ready. Most of our congregations are not made of money. We don't have a money tree that we can shake to get ourselves places for all youth events. And so fundraising will inevitably be part of a lot of congregations' experiences getting ready for the gathering. And so loads of helpful advice in the handbook, on the website, on the resource page of the gathering website. So we'll try to talk about a few things here, and maybe when we get to our question time, if there are specific questions or even ideas that people want to share, feel free to let us know some of those. So of course, fundraising should be based on your context. Not every fundraiser is going to work at every congregation. Not every fundraiser works for every young person, right? That people are coming from different backgrounds and experiences. And so trying to think about some intentional fundraising practices that are going to make sense for you is really important. It's possible that your congregation has some traditions in place or some guidelines in place about fundraising. And so you've already got a game plan and you know what to do and how to make that happen. Or if you don't, if you need some ideas, if you want to brainstorm a little bit, come up with an idea and tweak it to fit your context. Hopefully this will be helpful for you in that way then too. So in my experience, I would try to have a conversation with all of the young people who have decided that they want to go to the gathering to talk about kind of in thirds. We would divide up the cost, the financial cost of going to the gathering in thirds. The first part was asking each family how much they thought they'd be able to contribute to the cost of their young person going. Again, you've made that plan, so you've got a sense of how much it costs for your group to go, but also the per person cost to go to this event. And so the first third is talking about what kind of commitment that young person, their family would be able to contribute to get them to the gathering. It might vary per family, and so you have to decide what kind of policy you want to have about that aspect. Maybe there are some kids and families that aren't able to contribute anything at all. So you have to think about scholarships and kind of uncovering in that sort of situation. But I've also found that, again, if it's relevant for your context, whether it's the youth gathering or taking kids on a weekend retreat or a day trip, that when I have asked each kid or each family to commit like in some financial way to this experience, they're a lot less likely to kind of cancel or back out or come up with some other activity that they want to do instead later. Does that make sense? I can't tell you the number of times where I was like, we're going to go on this retreat and I found the way to make it free so people don't have to pay. And so for some people, that's awesome. Great. They're on board. There would be some other families who'd be like, oh, well, we didn't pay anything. So last minute, we're just going to decide not to go. Have you experienced this? It can be a little frustrating. So again, maybe it's not relevant for every single situation and context and family. But I've found a lot of times it can be helpful to have them make a commitment of some kind, maybe at least in part financial, so that they're more likely to follow through. Because I don't doubt they may have a lot of opportunities and something could come up during the summer that they would want to change their mind and do instead. But we want them to stay committed, right? To participate in this event, to not get distracted, right? That they were excited about it, they committed to go. We want them to follow that through. Not everybody, but sometimes it would happen. And so thinking about what's that third, right, that they might be willing to contribute. The next third, again, maybe it's not exactly a third, but it's in 3 parts. But the next part is asking your congregation what kind of commitment they might be able to make to contribute to the finances of each young person going. This, of course, could vary. It could be a big amount. It could be a small amount toward the cost of the per person cost. Maybe it comes from the church budget. Maybe it comes from your annual youth budget. Maybe it comes from the quilting group because they do a bake sale every year and they want to kick a couple dollars your way because they think this is an important event. Maybe it comes from a year-end gift, right, that a member of your congregation gives. So wherever it might come from, talking to church leadership to find out if there might be some dollars they can contribute to the cost of each person going to this event as an investment in those young people and leaders of the congregation. And then the third part is fundraising. And so we're going to talk about that, how you could kind of cover the balance, the difference for each of those young people to go. I mentioned before about scholarships from your congregation, but also, of course, there are scholarships possible through the youth gathering. And so as of the end of the day yesterday, and Justin will have to jump in afterward during question time to let us know if it has changed, but there were still gathering scholarships available. So if you haven't already, feel free to apply for a gathering scholarship. It's based on a particular young person and it's need-based. So there are still funds available to apply to get a scholarship for one of your young people to attend the gathering. So check that out if you need some help with that scholarship financial assistance that is still available to you. All right, so that third part, the fundraising part. Again, you have your plan, you know how much you need to cover difference-wise per kid, but also for your whole group to get to the gathering, and determining what kind of fundraisers make the most sense for your context. I also think that it's super important to think about timing. There may be some really horrible times to try and raise money at your congregation during the calendar year. From my experience, the two roughest times to make asks of the congregation for money were leading up to Christmas. Just like, don't do it. Like I mean, maybe your context it works, but in my churches, it never worked to ask for money because there are so many other like projects and emphases going on that like to have another one in the mix was just too hard. Another time of year that was rough was like in the springtime, leading up to like the end of the school year and summer, right? Like it's kind of already getting too close to the gathering, maybe kind of cutting it a little close, but also just tons of activities and things happening for families that it was too hard to kind of gather people's attention. Maybe this doesn't happen at your churches, but you know how like when the weather gets nice outside and people maybe don't come to worship every Sunday anymore when the weather starts to get nice, you just don't want to lose people's attention. So I guess what I'm saying is try to share your appeal for fundraising when the weather's a little less nice, right? Maybe this means wintertime when people are in the pews, so to speak. So to kind of gather their attention at an intentional time of year where you're not competing against lots of other projects and things going on in your congregation. Only you is going to know what the best time of year is for that. So feel free to disregard my advice if like May and December are the best times. Maybe they are for your congregation. Wasn't my experience, but you will know best. I think another awesome way to have a successful fundraiser is to pick one that is based on building community while you're raising money. So if it's something that can gather people together in a fun way, whatever that might be, it might be online, it might be in person, but trying to be creative to make it kind of a meaningful personal experience for those who are involved. So it's not just about collecting dollars, it's about getting to know people and sharing stories. And for those people who are investing in this experience for the young people taking part, feel connected to the gathering themselves. They might not physically be going to the event, but they feel invested in this exciting opportunity for the young people that are part of their community. So trying to make it personal, build community while you raise money at the same time. There are loads and loads and loads of fundraising ideas and suggestions. Hopefully you've seen some of them or all of them before. There are a whole bunch in the handbook itself from pages 22 to 25. So check those out, literally like bullet points, like loads of ideas. There's also a fundraising online supplement that came out last summer, kind of spring, summertime, that kind of had some fundraising suggestions that were catered to this like pandemic time that we are technically still in. And so those could be helpful to you as well. A group of folks kind of came together to make suggestions based on kind of how things were going at the time. Maybe some of those would be relevant for your context. I'll also mention to brainstorm with your synod coordinator and other people in your synod. They might have some amazing ideas that make sense for your area. Maybe you can kind of partner up or figure out ways to work together to just kind of think about it as a group, to come up with some ideas locally. And hopefully you can find some support in that way too. I have seen people do like crowdsourcing, right? To post on the Gathering Facebook page, to kind of ask a question and get some advice and feedback there, or in other youth ministry Facebook pages, right? To look for ideas together that you might be able to stumble on a gem that works really well for your context. I'll mention that the fundraiser that my congregations would do for several years came from my youth ministry friend, Kathy Hunstad. And it was called the Stockholders Fundraiser. And kind of the idea is that, again, every context is different. And so maybe it works differently in your congregation. But a couple of the congregations that I've served were finding that it was difficult to have so many fundraisers, to have several. And so there are all these different asks that keep coming over the course of several months. Maybe people were feeling it was kind of like one of those public radio telethons, right? That just kind of keep going, keep going. And so instead of having lots of asks, we decided to boil it down to one ask for 3 consecutive weeks, 3 or 4, depending. We would share the gathering with the congregation. We would tell them why we're going, why we think this is important. Young people would stand up and personally share why they want to go. They would share what they were looking forward to. They would share about themselves and where they are in their faith journey and what they're hoping to get out of this experience. And it was extremely meaningful and personal. Of course, it took some encouragement and some doing to get the young people to have the confidence to get up there and do it, but it was extremely meaningful. And we found that the congregation was so pumped up by those personal stories and experiences, testimonies about why they wanted to go, that they were that much more generous in wanting to give and to support this experience for the young people. And so we would say, this is how much we're trying to raise over the course of these weeks. We're going to have a thermometer and tell you where we're at. And when we hit that amount, we'll stop asking you. And it pretty much worked every year. I'd have to really think if there were any exceptions where it didn't work for any reason. And it wasn't like a huge amount, but we would ask for what we needed and the congregation would meet the moment, which is kind of amazing. And so if this is something that could work for you, it certainly has worked well for me, and I've shared it with other people along the way. So hopefully, maybe kind of sharing the story and getting personal with the congregation, the young people, getting to know the members, being there for a few weeks in a row, of course, every Sunday, but especially those focused weeks to kind of share this experience so the congregation could feel like they're a part of it too. Move on. I think we're doing okay on time. Hopefully Justin will send up a flare if we're not. So it's not too late to start. It's never too late to start. Well, maybe after registration closes, it's too late to start, to be fair. But it's not too late to start exactly where you are, that you've got plenty of time to get ready right now, right? If you're participating in this webinar, if you see this video in the next couple days, in the next few weeks, it's definitely not too late to start. So let's start exactly where you are. Again, there are some amazing timelines in the handbook that you can kind of pace out what's coming, where to begin, what to focus on. So create that timeline for your context, thinking about what kind of time you have to get ready and gathering people and thinking about this experience, to gather the young people to think about the next several months and getting ready for this event. Again, brainstorm with fellow youth workers from your neighbor congregations. They might have some amazing ideas, or maybe you've got amazing ideas to share with them. So hopefully it's a two-way street. You can support one another. So connect with those youth workers, connect with your synod coordinator. Some great community can be built there. The early bird registration window runs through November 21st. And so this kind of lower registration cost goes up until that day. So I think it would be a great idea to do what you can to kind of gather your young people if you haven't already, to recruit those adult leaders and be thinking about this. So you can go ahead and get them registered sooner rather than later, because the cost will go up on November 22nd. There is a timeline that's a part of, it's not on the main gathering webpage, but if you go to the main page, you'll see kind of key gathering dates, and it'll be able in the drop down. So you can find it there and you'll see these kind of registration windows. So to be mindful of that, again, we'll share all kinds of reminders along the way so you know that it's coming. But if that is a helpful time frame for you to be thinking about that November 21st date, to gather your group, be talking to folks, be ready to get registered before November 21st. And again, stay in touch with your synod coordinator. You know that I'm going to advocate for that because they are a great resource. They're all super friendly, super knowledgeable, and they want to help you. They want to support you. So reach out to them if you haven't already. They're going to share lots of great reminders along the way and support you as you go. You've totally got this. You can do this. Start exactly where you are, and it's going to be great. We're here to support you. I think with that, we're ready to take some questions. So if you've got things you're wondering about, things you would like for us to elaborate on, I think you can type them into the chat and Justin will scope them out and we'll do what we can to answer your questions. Think some things through with you. I'd like to brainstorm with you. Let's do it together.
Thanks, Vanessa, for all of that great information you shared with everyone. So we got 3 questions / comments in the Q&A. So one of the questions, Vanessa did touch on this, is there still an option to buy a physical copy of the handbook through Old Lutheran? Yes. If you just go to Old Lutheran and on like the side, there's like a menu, and then at the bottom it says Boundless. Click on there and you'll find the handbook. And yes, they are $10, I believe. So also Vanessa mentioned something about financial assistance. Yes, we still have funds available, so be sure to apply on the website. It's under the Attend tab. So all the way at the bottom, financial assistance, and then there's the application and all of the guidelines and things like that. So you can apply. And then the only other thing was someone mentioned that a Christmas cookie fundraiser works really well leading up to Christmas. So
it's a great idea. Yeah, it like fits with an existing tradition in your congregation instead of having like a separate different act. Love it. That's a great idea. Something for people to look forward to alongside the holidays. That's a great idea.
Yeah, maybe even like a pie fundraiser for Thanksgiving, even though Thanksgiving is just around the corner. So
I know
get
it's
on
like
that.
Tomorrow. I know. Yeah. I knew someone like I don't have permission to like share anybody's names or their hometowns, but their congregation would do a big fundraiser around the Super Bowl. They would I can't remember if it was like sub sandwiches or pizzas or something like that, and they would like take orders and they would deliver them on the day and they would make so much money. It was ridiculous. So it depends on like what your community is up to, what sort of things are your congregation's interested in, what kind of traditions do they have in the church and outside the church walls. Yeah, to try to figure out what those things are and find a way that you can have the young people connect to them and raise some money.
For sure. Well, I don't see any other questions or comments. Oh, actually, there's someone. What does that say? Our congregation has an annual Fashnacht sale, very successful for effort required. I think I pronounced that wrong.
How do you spell it?
Fasnacht. Oh, that was right. I was right on the first try. So
okay, good job.
There we go.
I was gonna guess it was related to Lefsa. Maybe not, but like I have heard of some Lefsa sales helping young people get to the gathering over the years.
Oh, it's the day before Ash Wednesday. Got it. Yeah, so that could be a good one. And one other question is, how do I know who my synod coordinator is? Do you want to mention that?
Yes. Yeah, so if you go to the main page, elca.org/gathering, and you scroll down, before you get to like the very bottom where there's all of like the general ELCA contact information, there's like a gathering banner. And on one side, it says like, meet the team. That's all the gathering staff and the team leaders. Then in the middle, there's the general contact info. And on the right side, it says synod coordinator in big letters with a button that says find. So click on find and it'll connect you. You'll have to choose your synod from the drop down. It doesn't tell you like their email address on that page because we don't want people to get spammed. But you can send them a message through that feature of the website. And so then you'll share your contact details, a message will go to them, and then hopefully they'll get back to you soon.
There you go.
That's the way.
Awesome. Well, I think we can wrap things up. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Vanessa, for all of the great insight that you shared this afternoon. I want to invite everyone to our next webinar on November 18th at 7 p.m. Central. It is Synod Day. So Pastor Eric Carlson will be with us talking about Synod Day for next summer. And so you can sign up on the website, or we'll send an email probably early next week with that link so you can sign up. But with that being said, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.